The Democratic response to the State of the Union was as tone-deaf as the state of the Democratic Party. Hi, I'm Tommy, and it's time for First Thoughts. Stacey Abrams, the loser of the 2018 Georgia gubernatorial race, gave the Democratic response to the State of the Union. Now, if you didn't watch the President's State of the Union address, you may have given Abrams a passing grade. But here's the thing, given the contents of her speech, I don't think she watched the State of the Union, because the facts contradict almost every single point Abrams made. Now, she started off the speech with an inspirational story about her family values, her dad's hard work and community, and she even mentioned first responders. That was good. I was cautiously optimistic. I mean, family values, hard work, loving the country, first responders. I almost thought she forgot she was a Democrat for a moment, but then she quickly reminded me she is.
The shutdown was a stunt, engineered by the President of the United States, one that defied every tenet of fairness and abandoned not just our people, but our values.
Wait, Stacey, that shutdown was a two-way street. Your party leaders didn't come to the table to uphold the values pertaining to border and national security, and they still won't. They won't work with the president at all, so save your BS. But then she talked about education and how zip code shouldn't determine it.
Children deserve an excellent education from cradle to career. We owe them safe schools and the highest standards, regardless of zip code.
And I think Stacey forgot she's a Democrat again, because school choice is a tenet of the GOP and this president, not the left, FYI. But it wouldn't be a Democratic speech if she didn't go after the Second Amendment, so she threw that in there in the same sentence as student loans. I call that part the let me smush in some buzzwords to appease the low information, emotional voters, blah, blah, blah. But it was this next part that was the real doozy.
In Georgia and around the country, people are striving for a middle class where a salary truly equals economic security. But instead, families' hopes are being crushed by Republican leadership that ignores real life or just doesn't understand it. Under the current administration, far too many hard-working Americans are falling behind, living paycheck to paycheck, most without labor unions to protect them from even worse harm. The Republican tax bill rigged the system against working people. Rather than bringing back jobs, plants are closing, layoffs are looming, and wages struggle to keep pace with the actual cost of living.
Stacey, did you watch the president's speech? Over 5 million jobs created, a tax cut for 80% of Americans, over 600,000 manufacturing jobs added, lowest unemployment rate for Black, Hispanic, Asian, and disabled Americans, record number of women in the workforce, rising wages, 5 million Americans lifted off food stamps. Does that sound like rigged, crushing, or harmful leadership by the president or Republican leadership? Are you kidding me? The woman attempted to flat out deceive the American people, and she did it again with this rant.
Compassionate treatment at the border is not the same as open borders. President Reagan understood this. President Obama understood this. Americans understand this. And Democrats stand ready to effectively secure our ports and borders.
Boo. President Obama's administration actually did oversee children in cages and family separation. You're full of it. Your emotional plea is flat out bull. But what about this little nugget?
Maternal mortality rates show that mothers, especially Black mothers, risk death to give birth.
Stacey, your Democratic leadership is passing legislation to allow late-term abortion until moments before birth or even after birth, as explained by Governor Racist Ralph Northam. Are you really gonna talk about maternity here? Are you really this blissfully ignorant? I think so, because she then spent the bulk of her speech complaining about her own gubernatorial loss. It was voter suppression, she said. Stacey, not wanting illegals, double voters, or dead people to vote isn't voter suppression, it's the law. If you cared about the integrity of our elections, as you repeatedly claim, you'd support voter ID laws, but fat chance of that happening. Stacey Abrams squawked about gun control, student loans, climate change, and the middle class, but she gave no specifics or solutions to any of her gripes. She couldn't. Her party can't. If they did, they would have to admit they are for illegal immigration, more regulations, higher taxes, and abolishing the Second Amendment. She might have been charismatic, but she was an empty suit with empty talking points and empty promises. If that's the state of the Democratic Party, I'm even more relieved to have President Trump defending us from it. But those are just my first thoughts from LA. God bless and take care.